A very good evening to all distinguished dignitaries present here. We are privileged to have your august presence. I would now request our chief guest, Honorable Mr. Justice P.S. Narasimha, Judge, Supreme Court of India, to kindly come on the dais. I also welcome the guest of honor of today's event, Senior Advocate Shri Tushar Mehta, Learned Solicitor General of India, to kindly come on the dais. I feel honored to welcome distinguished academician, Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar, Founding Vice Chancellor, O.P. Jindal Global University, to come on the dais. I would also request Senior Advocate and former ASG, Shri S.D. Sanjay, to kindly come on the dais. Today, on this prestigious occasion, we have gathered here to announce the launch of the book titled as The Indian Makeover, From Being Ruled to Being Governed, by Dr. Justice G.C. Bharuka and Devashish Bharuka. We will commence our event by lighting the lamp of knowledge and wisdom. This is a symbolic moment that signifies the dispelling of darkness and igniting of thought and enlightenment. May the light of this lamp illuminate our path and guide us towards truth and knowledge. May I request our dignitaries to kindly light the lamp. I would request Mr. Vinay Ahuja also to kindly come up on the stage and light the lamp. A great man is known and he needs no introduction. The next task assigned to me is to introduce our distinguished honorable dignitaries on the dais, which to my mind is the most difficult one, as the words would really fall short. So let me try and make an honest endeavor. A judge is the compass of the courtroom, guiding the ship of justice through the stormy seas of legal complexities with a steady hand and an unwavering commitment to the rule of law. Born on 3rd May 1963, Honorable Mr. Justice P.S. Narasimha graduated with triple majors in economics, political science, and public administration from Nizam College, Hyderabad. He later pursued law at the Campus Law Center, Delhi University in 1988. He enrolled as an advocate in the same year. He was designated as a senior advocate by the full court of the Supreme Court of India in the year 2008. He was appointed as the Additional Solicitor General of India in the year 2014. He was part of the Indian Supreme Court delegation to the Canadian Supreme Court, where he presented a paper on extradition and the environment. He had the rare opportunity of leading the Indian team and represented India before the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea in Hamburg, Germany. He also represented India before the Permanent Court of Arbitration, Hague, in investment treaty arbitration. He had been on the executive council of many national law universities and other educational institutions. He was elevated as a judge of the Supreme Court of India directly from the bar on 31st August 2021. I would now like to request Advocate Jaya Bharuka to kindly felicitate our esteemed guest. Thank you, Dr. Jaya Bharuka. His presence in the courtroom transcends advocacy. It symbolizes the embodiment of legal brilliance, a champion who navigates the complexities of the law with an artistry that sets the standards for excellence. Shri Tushar Mehta stands not only as a representative, but as a paragon of legal virtuosity, where each case becomes a canvas and every argument a stroke that paints the portrait of justice. Born on 11th September 1964, Shri Tushar Mehta graduated from L.A. Shah Law College, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, and further completed his master's from the same college in the year 1987. He enrolled as an advocate in the same year. He was designated as a senior advocate by the High Court of Gujarat in 2008, after which he was appointed as Additional Solicitor General of India in the year 2014 and as Solicitor General of India on 10th October 2018. I would now like to request Managing Director and co-founder of Mohan Law House, Mr. Vinay Ahuja, the publisher of the book being launched today, to felicitate our esteemed guest. Nelson Mandela once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar wields this weapon with unparalleled wisdom, enlightening minds and shaping a future imbued with knowledge and compassion. Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar, a Rhodes Scholar, he has obtained his Bachelor of Civil Law degree at the University of Oxford, a London Gammon Fellowship at the Harvard Law School, USA, where he obtained his Master of Laws degrees, and a James Sovereign Gallo Memorial Scholarship at Harvard University. He received the Doctor of Legal Science from the University of Hong Kong. He obtained a Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of Delhi, India. He served as a faculty member at the School of Law of City University of Hong Kong. Professor Kumar is the founding Vice-Chancellor of O.P. Jindal Global University in India. He was appointed as the VC at the age of 34 in the year 2009, when the university was established. He also serves as the founding Dean of Jindal Global Law School and Director of the International Institute for Higher Education Research and Capacity Building. I would now like to request Advocate Ravi Bharuka to felicitate our esteemed guest. Thank you, Ravi. In the legal arena, experience is not just measured in years, but in the profound impact one has on the pursuit of justice. I'm honored to introduce Shri S.D. Sanjay, whose seasoned expertise illuminates the path to a fair and just legal system. Shri S.D. Sanjay is a senior advocate in Patna High Court. After completing his graduation in law from the Campus Law Center, University of Delhi, he joined the chambers of late Dr. Justice G.C. Bharuka at Patna High Court in January 1985. Shri S.D. Sanjay was designated as a senior advocate by Patna High Court in the year 2013, and he was the first Additional Solicitor General of India at the Patna High Court and held that post between 2015 to 2020. I would now like to request Shubhashish Bharuka to kindly felicitate our esteemed guest. Shubhashish was in real hurry. Thank you. I would request Shri S.D. Sanjay, Senior Advocate and former ASG, to kindly present his welcome address. Sir.
Thanks, Archana. Good evening to all. Honorable Justice P.S. Narasimha, Judge Supreme Court, Sri Tushar Mehta ji, Learned Solicitor General of India, Dr. C. Rajkumar, Vice Chancellor, O.P. Jindal University, all my dear colleagues, honorable judges, sitting judges, retired judges, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all in this evening on the function of book launch of my senior Dr. G.C. Bharuka. As I have been introduced, that after completion of my law degree, I joined the Chamber of Justice Bharuka when he was a senior advocate in Patna High Court. So I am representing his legacy today in this function. Today we are in this function of launch of the book, which is the Indian Makeover from being ruled to being governed. And this book has been authored by late Dr. Justice G.C. Bharuka, and some part of the book was left, which has been completed by his illustrious son, Devashish Bharuka. Now this duty, which is being performed by a son for his parent, is really has become a very rare thing these days. And therefore, I congratulate Devashish for such an act. It is a real, his gratitude to his father who has written this book. Justice Bharuka was my guru, and I learned all the niceties of law while working with him as his junior. He was a leading lawyer of his time, and he was a very innovative lawyer. Now, he used to innovate points, and he was very adventurous in the court, and that gave much confidence to us while working with him in his office. He was, at his own time, he was appearing in Patna High Court, in Supreme Court, in Jharkhand High Court, and he was very popular in senior engagements during his time. He was elevated as a judge in 1990. I was with him till his elevation, and thereafter I became independent. Now, he was a popular judge in Patna High Court, and thereafter he was transferred to Karnataka. The best part in him was that even after becoming the judge, he was the first judge in the country who started thinking about use of technology in judiciary. And he started the work of computerization. It was his initiation in Patna High Court, which he could not complete because of his transfer. Thereafter, he went to Karnataka, and there also he did that work. And in fact, his work was so much appreciated that after his retirement as a judge acting Chief Justice in Karnataka High Court, he was appointed as the first chairman of E-Committee. Now, he was the only judge who retired from the High Court to become the chairman of the E-Committee. Thereafter, subsequently, it is only the judges of the Supreme Court who are becoming the chairman of the E-Committee. And as a chairman of E-Committee, his contribution was so good. He worked he was instrumental in framing the National Policy and Action Plan for implementation of information and communication technology in the Indian judiciary. And this policy even received the approval of the then Honorable CJI, Justice Lahoti, and it was rolled out, and the first phase of E-project was rolled out at that time. Now, Dr. Justice Bharuka, he, as a sitting judge, he enrolled himself for the doctorate, and he worked and he was granted doctorate degree from National University Bangalore, National Law School University Bangalore. And he was one of the first among the judges to be awarded this degree after completing this. And his task has been shouldered and taken over by Devashish. So I again congratulate Devashish for such a feat of completing this book, and today in that we are in the launch function. Thank you very much, and I welcome you all again.
Thank you, sir. I also welcome all the other distinguished dignitaries who are present here. Learned AGs here, all the senior advocates are here. Balbir Singh, sir, the SCBA president. My heartiest welcome to each one of you. The moment for which we have all gathered here has finally come. And at this juncture, I would like to introduce the publisher, Mohan Law House. The journey of Mohan Law House was started by Mr. Mohan Ahuja in the year 1977 and has been taken forward with a giant leap by his son, Vinay Ahuja. MLH has taken the responsibility of bringing global wisdom in the field of law under one roof, a step that will change the course of all those who are seeking justice. MLH is the premier hub for all kinds of legal requirement, from a small legal document to complex legal issues. They are veteran consultants and a great resource of law books to most of the judges' libraries, judicial academies, all national universities, and eminent lawyers in the country and outside India. The truth is that the vastness of knowledge and depth of content has amazingly turned MLH into a treasure trove. MLH has its presence now in 4 countries: UK, Mauritius, Singapore, Malaysia. I'm requesting Shri Vinay Ahuja of Mohan Law House to kindly join on the stage for the book release. The copyright of this book is held by the Bharuka Trust. The trust has been set up as per the wishes of Dr. Justice G.C. Bharuka for promoting academic activities. The trust expects to organize regular exchange of intellectual discourses in the field of law in future. May I now request Professor Dr. C. Raj Kumar, Founding Vice Chancellor, O.P. Jindal Global University, to kindly come and share his thoughts on the book.
Thank you, Archana. Whenever such glowing introductions are given, I always wish that my wife was present on this occasion, but she's not here. Honorable Chief Guests of this evening's very special program, Honorable Mr. Justice Narasimha, our distinguished and learned Solicitor Mr. Tushar Mehta, my very dear friend Bharuka Devashish, the publishers of the book, Mohan Law House, as well as Vinay, and learned Attorney General, distinguished senior counsels, Mr. Ganguly, as well as many other, Dr. Agarwala, and other distinguished jurists, judges, lawyers, academics. It's indeed my pleasure and a privilege to be part of this very special occasion as we honor the legacy of Honorable Justice Bharuka, but more importantly, to actually release a truly phenomenal book. When Devashish had come to show the book and give it to me, I thought I will, just when we do these book launches, we skim through the book. And so he was so thoughtful. Not only he gave the book, he pretty much was confident that most of us will not read it. So there is an abridged version of the book. So he also gave the abridged version. And I began to read the abridged version of the book, and then I just began to love it. So then I went back to the book itself, and I read most of the book, and it's a very dense, intensive, comprehensive, and a thorough tour de force on the evolution of what the book essentially talks about, which is the Indian makeover from being ruled to being governed. The remarkable part of this book, and I will say this because, that's why I asked Devashish this evening that how long did it take for him to come into the picture after his father had left the book with what it was. And he said, overall, he spent over 5 years, but intensively more than a year. And I can see that because the book has strong sense of legal and constitutional history. It has a strong sense of evolution of legal and political institutions. It has also looked at significant jurisprudence developed by Indian courts for a very long period of time. It has also talked about the institutional evolution and constitutional practice, and it has also talked about many aspects of international law. So it's very rare that one single book can encapsulate so much. And also, maybe one of the things that has happened is it's written over a period of time, so it was able to capture all of that in the course of that book. I will pick up a few themes. In fact, I was quite pleasantly surprised by the fact that the word governance was used as the framework for the entire book. Most legal literature doesn't talk much about governance, but this book has actually extensively talked about governance. In fact, every key chapter of the book has talked about what is called path in governance, norms of governance, and facets of governance. And that I think that's probably a very key theme that the book has captured, because how does a nascent country, which was, when we got independence and built our democratic institutions, there was, of course, widespread skepticism around the world that how can this new country even evolve itself into a democracy? When many parts of the world, including Western world, was deeply skeptical about the idea of universal adult franchise, we began the journey quite remarkably, and that was so beautifully captured in the book, in many parts of the book. The book, of course, doesn't hesitate to discuss complex issues, including issues that were, developed in the Constitutional Assembly debates itself. In fact, Granville Austin, one of the key writers of the Constitution history, what he talked about, that Indian Constitution is not just a legal document, it's a social document, and that's one thing which both Justice Bharuka and Devashish has covered, how the Constitution is actually a social document, how it creates, a framework for the future of India, how it has consciously developed aspects of constitutional governance through the evolution of the last 75 years. I also want to quickly mention that the book essentially appeals to a wide range of audience, not just lawyers. And that's another interesting thing about it, and I don't know whether it was a conscious decision, but many books that focus on law end up becoming difficult to navigate for people who are not familiar with law, people who don't understand jurisprudence and the way courts function. But this book is so accessible for anybody, including lawyers and judges, but also others who ought to be interested in the evolution of Indian democracy. Also, I think it's only fair to say that the book did not hesitate to talk about the future. It is actually so beautifully discussed about the strength of Indian democracy and the democratic institutions. And in fact, it is only fair to say that how democratic institutions were institutionalized itself is an extraordinary achievement in the last 75 years. And if you look at each of the revolution, that alone is a very significant development, and what each of those chapters have covered is so compelling. In fact, I was quite impressed by the fact that one of the chapters really talked about the democratic evolution of the country itself, and the data that now we have clearly reflects what an extraordinary achievement it was. I'm sure you are all familiar with some of the data. During the first Lok Sabha election held between 1951 and 52, around 80 million people voted to choose 489 members of parliament from 1,849 candidates. In the latest 2019 Lok Sabha elections, the number of voters had reached 900 million, who were eligible to vote for 8,040 candidates to elect 543 MPs. It was a mammoth effort to even conduct the election. In some ways, that captured this data essentially speaks to the chapter that the book has covered, which is about the development of institutions for governance. I also want to mention that the book in many ways is also a reflection. A lot of effort has been put in focusing on the rule of law as well as access to justice, to what extent institutions have been designed towards advancing the cause of the rule of law. There are challenges there, and I was very pleased to hear how issues surrounding e-governance and issues surrounding the role of technology was so much far-sighted in the imagination of Justice Baruka. An entire chapter has been devoted in the book for focusing on that as well. I also want to mention that I was so pleased to read a very thoughtful and a beautifully written foreword of the Attorney General for India. I said that because normally people, when you write a foreword, you make general comments, but the kind of scholar that Mr. Venkatamani is, he essentially penned down a scholarly and a very research-oriented, intellectually rigorous foreword. And that in many ways set the tone of the book, although the book clearly was written long before the foreword itself. I also want to mention that the book has given a very strong and a robust prediction for the future as well. In some ways, the transition from being ruled to being governed is reflected in not just the evolution of institutions, but also the relationship between the state and the citizen. And this, I think, is covered and permeates across the book, where there is enough focus on civil society activism. It also focuses on right to information and the expansion of the rights jurisprudence, the integration of the Part 3 and the Part 4 of the Constitution, the horizontal application of human rights, essentially drawing upon the doctrine of Wirkung from the German jurisprudence. So much of care and effort has been put for the book to appeal to a range of audience, but also to be keeping it intellectually rigorous at all times. I also want to mention that the book was not only a fascinating reading for me, who rarely have time to read any book as a Vice Chancellor of a university, but this one was such a pleasure because it covered so much of canvas that typically one book rarely covers. So I want to end, because I know that we have distinguished speakers ahead of me, I want to end by citing two interesting couplets from Tamil, which is my mother tongue. These are both short poetry written by no less than Thiruvalluvar over 2,000 years ago. So this book and the culmination of the work by both Justice Baruka and his son reminds me of two couplets. The one is, and I'll read it in Tamil and quickly translate it as well. The first one is, Tandai Magar Kaatru Nandri Avayathu Mundi Iruppa Chayal. That's about what a father can do for the son. And the translation is something like this. The benefit which a father should confer on his son is to give him precedence in the assembly of the learned. And I believe Justice Baruka did that exactly to his son. And what in return Debashish has done, and that is another couplet of the Thiruvalluvar, Magan Tandai Kaatrum Udavi, Ivan Tandai Ennotran Kol Ennum Sol. And the translation is that it may be said, by what great penance did his father beget him is the benefit which a son should render to his father. And that beautifully captures the extraordinary duo author, Justice Baruka, as well as Debashish Baruka. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar, for this lovely insight into the book. I tell Devashish, who's a very dear colleague and a friend, that you really are a perfectionist. And today, Dr. C. Rajkumar has put a stamp on it. Thank you so much. There's one more thing about the chapters he was referring. In fact, the chapter on democratic evolution of our country is one of my favorites too. Thank you, sir. May I now request Shri Tushar Mehta, Senior Advocate and Learned Solicitor General for India, to kindly give his address.
Honorable Justice Narasimha, who doesn't like to be addressed as Justice Narasimha, my very dear friend C. Rajkumar, Sri Sanjay, my colleagues Chetan Sharma, Aishwarya Bhati, and still my colleague Balbir Singh. I say because he is still, I have a right of preemption over him. The learned Attorney General for India, the President of the Bar, and luminaries. It's indeed not only a pleasure but a privilege to be a part of a function which is special by itself. It is so special for the simple reason that a journey which was started by a great luminary father but could not be completed, came to be completed by an equally intellectual son, and whenever in the past, whenever in the history, something initiated by the father which was left because of his untimely demise and completed by the son has always gone down in history. This is a tribute by a son to his father by completing his work. Friends, since I personally know about it, mother of Devashish was really looking forward for this occasion. She could see the book, she could bless the book, but she could not be with us. But I can assure Devashish that both Dr. Justice Baruka and your mother are here, may not be in physical form, but they are blessing you, blessing all of us, and are really happy that you did what your father intended to do during his lifetime. A very striking feature of this book, I'm not a very good academician, I'm not even a bad academician, so I'll not try to compete with Dr. Rajkumar or, for that matter, Justice Narasimha. But something which occurred to me while going through the book is one new nuance which is given to this boring subject of constitution. And that is the use of the expression governance, as Dr. Rajkumar said. See, right till today, we used to believe that there are three separate wings under the Constitution. Parliament makes the law, executive executes, and the judiciary adjudicates. But now, for the first time in my limited reading, all three organs of the states are a part of the governance. Parliament governs by making the law, executive implements, and that is how it governs the law, and even the judiciary governs the law by adjudicating it. This is a new dimension which is provided in this book. I have a very small request to make to my very dear friend Devashish Baruka. He has started his book, as I have gone through, by the Indian concept of governance and Indian concept of democracy, because ultimately the Constitution as we see today is nothing but a codified form of a democratic governance. And he starts by saying that the Indian mindset had always been to be governed by some individual or a group of individuals. The governance of the people by themselves is an evolving process, and that's possibly the thread which we find throughout the book. But subject to the research which I am requesting him to make, India was possibly the first country which gave the concept of democracy to the world. During Chandragupta Maurya Empire, there was a different system of governance where, for the first time, the great Kautilya, the great Chanakya, made one India, Bharatvarsh, which was divided into several sanghs, several states. And each state would send one representative who used to be called Amatya. And the collective body of those Amatyas representing each individual state would be called Amatya Sabha, which can be compared with the present day parliament. And they would elect someone as Maha Amatya, which is the present day Prime Minister of India. There was a king, but surprisingly, and subject to the research which my learned friend I'm sure will make, the Prime Minister was supreme in decision making, Prime Minister was supreme in governance, and Prime Minister was supreme in policy making, except in times of war, where the king would have the last word on two questions as to whether to go for war, and if yes, what should be the strategy. So India can really say to be proud originator of the very concept of democracy, and our constitution may have borrowed some concepts from other constitutions, but we have no reason to believe that our constitution is based upon other constitutions. We have originated the concept of democracy. I'm sure my learned friend has that academic bent of mind also, apart from being an excellent lawyer, and he would work on it. And maybe one day we may find a book where he traces the history backwards from this book as to how this kind of governance reached up to the making of the present Constitution of India. Friends, I don't wish to take more of the time. I am really grateful and honored that I am a part of such a pious function. I say pious function because this is nothing but expression of gratitude by a son to the father, and I am a part of it. I am really proud about it. I really congratulate not only my dear friend, but his wife also, Jayaji, because nobody can undermine the contribution of the wife. May not be direct, but wives do contribute by not interfering in what the husband is doing. I'm thankful, and I wish you a very good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. It was good to hear how you connected the past, the history, with the present day. Thank you once again from the bottom of my heart. May I now request Honorable Mr. Justice P.S. Narasimha, Judge, Supreme Court of India, to kindly share his thoughts.
Thank you very much, Archana. And also thank you for the kind words. Learned Attorney General, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, Mr. Raj Kumar, distinguished academician, Devashish, Sanjay ji, Many of you who would know a bit of Carnatic music would have heard of Tyagaraja. Of course, Attorney would know. In a distinguished gathering like this, he had only one word to say, Endaro Mahanubhavalu, Andariki Vandanamulu, which means very many Mahanubhavs here, and my pranams to all of you. The president of the bar is also here. One problem with lawyers and judges is that we all think alike. That's the reason why perhaps we need to have a different composition sometimes. I wanted to say this thing about, unique thing about this book launch, about the son continuing and realizing what the father had thought about it. And if the father had conceived the idea, he had delivered it. And that's the greatest achievement. And for that, from the bottom of my heart, I must congratulate him for that. Undoubtedly, not only that he did it as a duty, but I think he imagined what the father was thinking about and what his ideas were, and correctly translated them. There is another factor. Devashish had, fortunately, with the comfort in the family, did higher education, went to one of the best universities in the world, got his LLM. But however, what father has imbibed in him is his gentleness, his courtesy, and more than anything, his desire to come back to India, practice and contribute. These are factors which are normally not seen, but that's the father figure which instills those values in you. Father himself, I have a recollection of Justice Baruka walking in the corridors of our court, and he was quite tall, and long robes, was carrying some books always with him, courteous, and has a unique way of addressing the court with his erudition and a technique to persuade. That's the little memory that I have. But what I gather is that apart from being a successful lawyer, had great amount of experience, and I believe he was a continuous learner. So not merely the law as we are addicted to reading or upgrading in law, and we disable ourselves from learning new things. His unique feature was to learn new things, and he contributed in the technological field to the development of law in that field. So that's another unique feature that he had contributed, and many of us have seen that he was part of many committees. This book really, really interested me because as I read from Devashish's introduction, that he considered the Constitution to be rather legalistic, and he wanted to have it to be presented in a simple manner without being simplistic. Simplicity is one of the greatest values, and at the same time, one of the most difficult things to achieve. To arrive at simplicity, one has to know what to sacrifice. What is essential, what is not essential. So the core of it must be known, and the rest must be left. So I am sure he would have been working with the Constitution for a very long time, and as he worked, he tested the essential part of it, the procedural part of it, the core of it, and over a period of time, I think he got to know and understand the best way to present it. And again, as I was saying, that we all think alike. Yet another thing which impressed me was his word governance again. Governance is again a very important thing. why it is important is he has taken each of the chapter. I was trying to compare it with the constitutional text. He compares it with each chapter and very beautifully gives alternative names to some of those chapters which are there. The governance relating to the parliament, the legislative powers, the executive powers, the implementation. He would use expressions like path of governance, machinery of governance, norms of governance, and finally, evolving facets of governance. So this actually tells us that his approach was very, very unique. Mr. Kannabiran has said a very beautiful thing about our constitution, advent of the constitution. He said, with the advent of the constitution, till that point of time, we were subjects of governance. Subjects of not really governance, subjects of a power. But with the constitution, the transition took place when we moved from being a subject of a king or a queen or a sovereign to that of a citizen. So that transition from being subject to a citizen is a very beautiful transition. And the subtitle of the book is also unique. And I think he says, from being ruled to being governed. So that is also a similar approach that Justice Bharuka takes, and a very, very significant feature that steps into each of our lives when the advent of the Constitution. Apart from governance part of it, the Constitution also has brought in something very unique for all of us. These are fundamental rights. And what has that done to us? That's again a core which he touches upon in his book. When you grant an inviolable fundamental right, you are actually recognizing the identity of each of the individual. So each one of us have an identity, and the Constitution recognizes that identity. That's the most important feature of our Constitution. What happens when our identities are recognized? Constitution reposes respect towards each one of us. So each one of us are respected under the Constitution for the identities that we have, and I think that is what the preamble sets in to say, assuring the dignity of an individual. Each individual's dignity assured by the Constitution, and such of those each individuals together form we the people of India, and we the people of India together constitute one of the greatest values of the Constitution, the principle of fraternity. This again is the essential part of it, which one could draw out from the book of Justice Bharuka. And then it takes us to a very essential question, though I have written it. I don't want to read it on a Friday evening when all of us want to go back and have a better time and break away from our routines. I will end with this. Where does that identity take us to? Then if we are citizens of India and we all have identities, and therefore we have the dignity, and that is what represents our fraternity, then definitely there must be some commonality in our identities then. Then how are we the citizens of India? The commonality comes from many things that we draw. Many of them are the borders, which are natural borders, which are drawn around us. We become part of the same territory. something that transcends the territory, apart from the environment that we have, the weather that we have, the rains that we have, the seasons that we have, the birds that we have, the trees that we have, and then the fury of nature that we have, which we know when it will strike. So we all know our nature, and nature knows us, I think. Apart from that, there is some other lines that have been drawn on our brows, which are something like our experiences. And one of the biggest experiences is our colonialization. And that's something which has left such deep scars on us and brought into existence common identity, therefore. So what is the factor that needs to be looked into is that the individual identities that we have were for some time effaced, taken away, made indifferent by the foreign rule. So therefore, the long struggle that we had during the independence, what we asserted, if we see the book of Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan in the first chapter, as well as the entirety of the constitutional debates, repeatedly each of our constitutional father takes us back to our roots and says us, this is what we were and this is what we lost. So therefore, let us bring it back to what we were and what we shall be commonly together. So those things which are common in us is again the most essential part of it. What fraternity does, I will end with this, and this is an idea which I live with and I keep perhaps propagating it. While we assert our right to equality and right to liberty, one of the most essential values under the Constitution, these are rights which we assert as an individual self as wants, but the way to reconcile them is only through fraternity. Fraternity is the process by which you would want to belong to a common identity, and through the common identity you will exercise your equality and liberty. That way there is a complete reconciliation of the three Godheads, equality, liberty and fraternity, and through that the ideal of the Constitution can be relived beautifully, and for many times to come as a world leader we could demonstrate it. I again conclude by congratulating Devashish for completing the good task, and also I'll conclude by thanking the publisher. Thank you for inviting us, Mr. Vinay Ahuja, and also I must thank the Baruka Trust for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for those thoughtful words. In fact, very rightly reminded us again today that the recognition of identities of each individual is ensured by the Constitution, and the assurance is given in the preamble. Thank you very much, sir. Well, normally the programs are over after the speech of the Honorable Chief Guest, but it would be not appropriate for me if I'll not call our learned AG, respected Sri Venkat Ramani ji, to kindly come up and say few words. He's written the foreword for this book. So Devashish really requested that I should invite you and call you for few words.
Thank you, sir. I don't remember anything about the foreword. Except that when Devashish came and asked me to write a foreword, I said, I need a little time to read this wonderful piece of literature you have put on my table. I took a little time, but then it's not what I wrote in the foreword. That's actually only a small part of our ability to express what we really feel about a very thoughtful product. It's a very small, a tip of the iceberg about the way I looked at a book. Of course, after all those scholarly speeches and very thoughtful talk about connecting identity, fraternity, and Rajkumar talking about taking the takeaway from being ruled. I don't think I should talk about it much longer. But what perhaps we need more and more such literature, Indian literature. We still keep looking at, I don't say I draw a divide between West and the East, not the usual way of dividing, but Indian literature, it is time that we talk about Indian experience. It's time we talk about Indian takeover in the Indian sense, right? I think there's a lot of meaning to be gathered in what I'm saying. Not again in a very, very narrow, pedantic sense. But what appealed to me was the Constitution told us that you are no longer subject to anything. You are the power holders. You are the governors. People became the governors. So when he said there's being ruled to being governed, I said, how are we going to govern ourselves? So this kind of literature will keep telling us how do we keep governing ourselves through institutions, through individuals, through collectivities, and a compact which grows so naturally in the Indian soil. So that compact, I think, will live as long as one can nourish that compact, nurture that compact by this kind of collective efforts. It's not merely a legal literature. And every piece of writing about the Constitution, I think it will be as good as the Constitution itself. And I know this, a great pious obligation by a son. I don't think we need to talk more about that, but I know how beautifully you would have felt about it to complete the task, handed out to him his father. So I wish that he's able to bring out many debates on how India, as a great nation, will tell the rest of the world how we are going to govern ourselves. And so it's a very delicate piece of the instrument, and to make it more and more beautiful, I heartily congratulate him as a friend and as a elder brother at the bar. So I think each one of you will share me in this wonderful moment beyond what the others have stated. Thank you so much for calling me here.
Thank you very much, sir. And I'm really sorry for that last-minute call on the stage. Now I would like to call Devashish himself so that he can come and share his thoughts and give away vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Arshan. A very good evening to all. Each one of us would have a different perspective of a subject matter, and a book is no exception to it. For a publisher, I believe a book could be a work in progress. For a bookseller, it could be a stock in trade. For a librarian, it's a part of collection. For a reader, it's a source of knowledge, of information, of maybe inspiration. But what it is for an author? For an author, a book is the birth of an idea. And those ideas are then, in a written form and written words, they come up on paper. And it is these words which finally take the shape of a script. And that's how I believe an author would look at a book. But what is more important and more fundamental is how that book is fueled is really by the author's passion to write on a certain subject on which he strongly believes in. And I believe it is my father's passion which really led him into writing this book. He strongly believed in the constitutional values. He strongly believed that the Constitution is truly meant for the citizens, and it is ultimately the citizens, the common man, who should know what the Constitution is about, and not merely the legal fraternity. It's the citizen who is governed by the Constitution, so the citizen should know more about that than the persons who are governing or who are to govern. He strongly believed that why the Constitution as a document is relevant and how exactly it is that what was the situation before independence and what exactly was the paradigm shift which happened. Why is it that this document is so relevant for India? It was these thoughts, I believe, for which he wanted to put answers, and answers for the common man to read. And it is in that perspective that when he started the book, he always felt, and he always spoke to me about it, that it should be written in a manner so that everybody, be it a student of law or be it a common person, should be able to understand. And this is what has gone into this book. I am deeply grateful to Honorable Mr. Justice P.S. Narasimha, Judge, Supreme Court of India, for immediately accepting my humble request to be the chief guest. P.S. Narasimha, sir, as we all know, had been most gracious always to the younger members of the bar. I had the honor and privilege of working with him in many matters, and I had the occasion of learning from him at every step. So I'm truly grateful that you had accepted my request to be the chief guest. I'm also grateful to the learned Solicitor General of India, Mr. Tushar Mehta. Tushar Mehta, sir, I would say is the one why this event is today even happening. It had so happened a couple of months back, this event was to take place, as you all know, and because of certain circumstances, it could not. And I had actually and almost given up with the entire idea of having this event. And I met Sir, and Sir persuaded me and said that you must have this event because it is beyond just a book launch. And so I'm truly grateful that on that day you told me, and today we are here. My dear friend, Dr. Professor Raj Kumar, I'm truly grateful to him as well that he accepted my request. Despite all his globe-trotting all over, he never misses my call and would always respond to it. And when I had gone down to him to request to be a part of this function, he immediately agreed. Thank you so much, Raj, for being here. Shri S.D. Sanjay, senior advocate and former ASG, he is an elder brother to me. He was, when he was in my father's chambers, I think I was just studying in a school, and that's how since then I have known him. He has been very kind, always very supportive right from the first day of my profession. And thank you so much, Sanjay Bhaiya, for being here, coming down from Patna. My heartfelt thanks to Sri Venkat Ramaniji, the learned Attorney General for India. I'm truly grateful, sir, that you had agreed to write the preface to the book, the foreword to the book. Despite your terribly busy schedule, still you took out time not only to read the entire script, but as I told you earlier, probably to understand the book better than what I had understood out of it. And thank you so much, sir, for writing the foreword. My thanks to the law officers for participating in this event. My heartfelt thanks to the learned senior advocates who are present. Shri A.K. Ganguly, who has been a very close friend of my father and has always been supporting and guiding and blessing me at all times. My thanks to the President, Supreme Court Bar Association, Mr. Adish Agarwal. My thanks to my senior, Mr. Naresh Kaushik and Kaushik ma'am, for being here. And all thanks to all the senior advocates, my colleagues and friends at the bar. It is without the support of all, it would not have been possible. Thank you so much for being here, and kindly join us for dinner. Thank you.
I have one request, a leave to amend my speech. That happens with lawyers every time. I was not aware that Jayaji had in fact contributed by proofreading the book and doing many other things. So I tender an unconditional apology to her. And there was also, that was a contribution which must be acknowledged, and I stand corrected.
Dinner is served outside. Please have it before you go. Thank you.